Rutgers football, welcome to the Big Ten. The conference is counting on you to bring that New York City market money, and in return, can you possibly find some wins to start off Big Ten play in 2014? That's what we're looking for right here on MarkRogersTV as we continue to scan the country and go through all the Power 5 conference schedules, 1 through about 65, something in that range. So all the Power 5, plus possibly we'll get to Notre Dame and BYU as well, and maybe a few others. But we've gone through the SEC. We welcomed Maryland to the Big Ten. Now we stay with Rutgers as we welcome in the newbies to the Big Ten before we dive into the traditional powers in the Big Ten Conference. So for Rutgers, I like this schedule because they know who they are, and we still would like every Power 5 conference team to schedule somebody else as a Power 5 conference foe, and Rutgers barely meets the criteria. They've got a game on August 28th, so that's the opening Thursday night of the season. They go to Washington State to take on the Cougars, a horrible football team. A couple years ago, Mike Leach has brought them back to respectability. They made a bowl game last season with 6 wins. Rutgers will be an underdog. We would expect at Pullman, Washington, to take on Washington State as Rutgers goes all the way across the country. They did the same thing last year in taking on Fresno State and the Bulldogs, a very formidable foe with Derek Carr at quarterback, and Rutgers somehow, I didn't see the game. I would love to see how Rutgers scored 52 points against anybody. Excuse me. They may be able to do something similar against Washington State. So Rutgers at Washington State, they'll be an underdog there. They've got to win the other 3 non-conference games. They've got Howard at home. We'll give them a pass there because they also play at Navy. I like that game. Playing the academies, the military academies. No shame in that. So Rutgers at Navy, and then they also take on Tulane. Now, the game should be in Louisiana at the Superdome to possibly stir up some recruiting base down there for Rutgers, but they're hosting Tulane, so I don't think that's a good game. I don't think that gives them anything, does anything for Rutgers football, hosting Tulane. Step it up, Rutgers. You're in the Big Ten now. Schedule 2 Power 5 conference foes. The Navy game is nice, and then the throwaway, against Howard is fine. But again, at Washington State, you got the Power 5 game against actually a bowl participant from last year. Howard at Navy and Tulane. Okay, got to win 3 out of 4. Possibly could steal the game at Washington State against the Cougs. All right, let's dive into the Big Ten play for Rutgers. It's tough to find victories here for the Scarlet Knights. So we talked about it in our Maryland video post. The Big Ten a la Nebraska when the Huskers joined a few years ago, I believe in 2011. The Big Ten doing no favors for Maryland or Rutgers. So for the Terps, they've got to play Wisconsin and Iowa out of the other division. So you get the setup here. You got 14 teams in the Big Ten, 7 in the East, 7 in the West. They got rid of that Legends Leaders business. That was a debacle. They went to the traditional geographic, feasible East and West conferences. Maybe the East is too tough, but at the same time, it makes sense geographically, and it's fairly balanced. All right. So Rutgers and Maryland play everybody in the East. They get 2 games in the Western Division. So for Maryland, that's Wisconsin and Iowa, possibly the 2 best teams in the West. For Rutgers, it's possibly the 2 best teams in the West. Wisconsin, who we would assume is the best team at this point, and also Nebraska. So tough sledding for the Scarlet Knights, which sets up this run starting in early October. They've got to play Michigan, at Ohio State, at Nebraska, and Wisconsin. 4 weeks of Big Ten play, about as good as it gets for the Scarlet Knights. So Rutgers, you're no longer in the America Athletic Conference, and that's plain to see here. Michigan, at Ohio State, at Nebraska, Wisconsin. And that's after they play Penn State in week 3. Then they finish up with Indiana, at Michigan State, and at Maryland. So the Big Ten, it seems pretty obvious from this first schedule, and I have yet to look at the 2015 schedule and beyond, is trying to put together Rutgers and Maryland as that Eastern block and set them up as division rivals a la Ohio State, Michigan, Indiana, Purdue, etc., Illinois, Northwestern, and set up Rutgers and Maryland as the 2 newbies in the Big Ten as traditional rivals. So they will face off at College Park the last weekend of the season. But before that, it's difficult to find wins for Rutgers. Out of those slate of games, Indiana, they've got to win that game. They've got to win the showdown that we talked about against Maryland. Other than that, they've got to pull off an upset to get to 3 wins to match their 3 non-conference wins to go bowling. And it's going to be difficult again. They're going to be substantial underdogs against Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Michigan State. Rutgers, that's the formula. 3 out of 4 non-conference. Maybe you steal a 4th at Washington State. That sets you up to go bowling if you can go 2-6 in the Big Ten, or possibly 3-5 if you pull off a major upset. Rutgers fans, are you happy about being in the Big Ten? I believe that you are, based on everything I've heard. More money, more exposure. It's not the Big East. It's not the America Athletic Conference. You're playing with the big boys. You're playing in the big time. And let's see if you can hold up against this schedule. And possibly, I would think this is the goal. Make a bowl game in year 1 in the Big Ten. Rutgers, would love to hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV.